Good day, everyone, and welcome to our first edition of our International Women's Day conference. And I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our speakers today. But before I introduce them, I'll introduce myself. My name is Henriette Bichai. I'm the Vice President at IDC World Source for Quebec. Joining us here is Mirella Fiore, our Regional Vice President from Eastern Canada from BMO Life Insurance. Catherine Mullum, Head of Wealth Sales at Manulife Investment Management. Anne Gaëlle Whiteman from La Rue des Femmes, Coordinator of the Jacqueline House. Cindy David, CFP CLU, FEA, and TEP President and Estate Planning Advisor. So welcome to you all, and thank you so much for being with us. Before we get started, I want to say something a little bit about awareness. I know that we hear a lot about awareness, and sometimes maybe we hear, people tell me that we hear too much of it. And I want to say that we never hear enough of it. So every time somebody asks you to speak or to attend or to support, I would encourage you to do so. We are on an uphill climb towards a summit of change. And that climb sometimes is laborsome, sometimes is tiresome, but we have to keep walking up because we are in the midst of change and we're not there yet. So speaking of change, Catherine, you are recognized as one of Canada's most powerful women by Women's Executive Network in 2019 Champion of Change, recipient in the Women in Capital Markets. Please tell us a little bit about what Champion of Change means to you.
Yeah, thank you. It was certainly exciting. It was a crazy year, 2019, and I felt very fortunate. And I did reflect on it quite a bit on what it meant. And really for me was it gave me, it elevated my platform. So, you know, I won these awards because of the influence and the change I have made in the industry that I work in and working with women throughout my career. But what I've seen since is it's giving me even a broader platform, which is really, really exciting. That goes, it's broadened my network. I'm finding I'm mentoring more women, which is really exciting as well for me. So it took what I'm trying to do and make a change, and it just elevated it one more step.
That's wonderful. I wanted to also recognize Cindy. You've been awarded the top 100 award list released by Women's Executive Network. All this recognition, what does it mean to you?
I was really honored to make that list, and I think that you know, if you want to know the reason, like Catherine said, it's because of the giving back part. You know, being chair of KLU, I'm attending another session after this in the House of Commons, which is why I have the KLU logo behind me. So I'm not here representing KLU, but yeah, I sit on several boards actually, and give a lot of my time to better the industry and hopefully set an example for younger women that want to be in leadership roles in the country.
So all of this recognition breeds some sort of confidence. Don't you agree?
Definitely. I think you have to start with some confidence to be in a leadership role and to sit on boards and to really know what you're talking about. And you know, I won't answer one of the next questions coming up too soon, but it just takes a number of years to get to the point where you know what you're talking about. You feel like you can give back and to raise your hand to be on boards and then donate all of the hours that are required to do so.
Mirella, you are a very inspiring person. And I have something to ask you. So research shows that women lack confidence. One theory, which I don't agree with, blames our lower supply of testosterone, which may lead to our less ambitious selves, less competitive, less taste for confrontation. What are your thoughts on confidence boosters, and what has made a difference in your life, and how can we women have more confidence?
Yeah, thanks, Henriette. I think that's a great question. So what stands out to me in everything that you just said was the word confrontation. And there seems to be a negative connotation to the word. And really, in my opinion, there should not be. Um, so when I was a teen, I had a hard time accepting the word no, whether it was time for curfew or not allowed to go somewhere. I was very confrontational. I pushed the envelope. Um, Luckily, I had a wonderful patient father who would take the time to carefully explain and answer my questions, reason with me, and oftentimes he would acquiesce. He would, he realized that I was putting up good arguments and he would change his mind. So I realize now that indirectly, he was showing me that if you approach a problem logically, if you can express yourself clearly and believe deep down that you are correct, you've earned the right to be confrontational, albeit respectfully, of course. So in my opinion, confrontation allows you to get to the heart of the issue. It makes you consider positions that you hadn't imagined and basically leads to better outcomes. So as far as, who had that impact, I'd have to give credit to my dad.
Thank you, Morella. So one of the things that amazes me, and part of the reason why I chose to sit on the board of the foundation of La Rue des Femmes, was I found that we were very privileged to be in our situations, to have access to education, wealth, structure, love, kindness, friendship, support. And what touched me is La Rue des Femmes. They have a sort of like a slogan that says we're more than just a house, we don't just house women, we heal them. So, Anne Gael, would you tell us how powerful women, or even women who have confidence, or women who have overcome their own emotional challenges and psychological challenges, other obstacles in their life, how can they pay forward today? Tell us a little bit about La Rue des Femmes and what successful women can contribute to these women, either by voice or by aid.
Yes, hi everybody. So at La Rue des Femmes, we're an institute of relational health, and we work actually with homeless women, and we bring the knowledge of homelessness further than whatever has been known up until right now, and it's about how the nervous system is working actually, and homelessness is a matter of health and needs to be treated as a matter of health, and not something that is because of money, lack of money, poorness, and everything. So how can I pay it forward? You need to understand that whatever can stop us is coming from the response of our body. When we have a fear, when we have like fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of failure, not being good enough. I'm sure all of us can really relate to that. And when we are in those fears, we don't, it's not the brain who's deciding what we're doing. So we go to patterns, repetition of reactions that can stop us. And it's by consciousness, saying that we can understand that and why, how it affects our full development, actually. So paid forward to the young one is that I think it's, first of all, it would be to trying to fight men and trying to convince them that they have to give a place to women. I think it's not enough. I think we do as women in power, in position of power, we have to make a place for women. We have to pave and ensure security and safety for women to move up. And that's how we're going to establish new rules actually for women. We have to bring women from the women. And I like to say in those things that when I think about that, I'm saying the panel we're having today for the Women's Day, men, they don't have that kind of of meetings talking about themselves and how to succeed and this and that. Yeah, I think we can only be the one to change for our daughters.
Really great comment. And in the midst of change, we are in the midst of change. And maybe one day we
Yes.
won't have to talk about how much we
Oh,
have
hopefully.
overcome. Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of which, Catherine, would you comment? You have been with Manulife for more than 18 years. How do you feel the business has changed over the last 20 years? A business that's been primarily historically dominated by men in leadership roles or another. And maybe, Cindy, you would also have a comment because you're also actively involved in legislative change, because government and finance has traditionally been a male's position. So do you feel that there has been a lot of change? Do you feel there's more change coming? Has there been place for women? What are your thoughts? Catherine?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, I've been in the industry just over 30 years and I've seen a ton of change. I would say every time I walked into a boardroom, I was always the only female in the room. Like there was never an exception. And I would say over the last 8 to 10 years, I've seen that evolve. I think within the insurance company, certainly the banks, there's quotas now on the amount of women that come in. There's a lot of feedback on this line. I'm not sure why. Okay. So I think that's been really helpful to get more women excited about our industry. I think it's also helped men network more, right? Outside of their normal networking places. And it's really made them go out and meet women, get out of their comfort zone. So I see a lot of positive change. I see it at my own organization. I actually sit on our global DEI, diversity and inclusion committee, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm really hopeful, not only for women, but just for diversity in general. I think what I'm seeing now is the top of the houses are realizing that it's not just a checkbox, it's actually to help our organizations grow, be better. There's really strong financials around being diverse in your workplace. So yeah, I'm hopeful. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. It's why we're all here in this panel. It's why, Cindy, you talk about giving back. I spent a lot of time giving back, to keep trying to influence change. But I would say the last 8 to 10 years, yeah, we've seen massive change. So that makes me happy.
I would add to that. Thanks, Catherine. Those are awesome points. I mean, we're in life insurance, and everybody knows this is, we have other diversity issues. So I would say old, white, and gray is our representation in the insurance industry. I can say that because I fall on the old side, so I'm not offending anybody. After 30 years of doing this, we've made progress. So from 2012, one of the first task forces that I sat on at KLU was actually one that wanted to do some research to see whether or not KLU represented the overall industry for female advisors. So we paid a lot of money out of our strategic reserve to have a company do that analysis. And what we found was that our female membership did represent the industry, which was 11% at the time. So back, the stats in my video for them yesterday said that back in 2000, and I'll just sort of, don't hold me to this, but it was around 13% in 2012. Female advisors in the industry, and we have increased that to a whopping 19%. We're very proud of that. I think, you know, that's definitely moving in the right direction. Is it fast enough? I'd say no. Could it be more? Absolutely, yes. 19% females, female advisors in the industry. And I think that, you know, a bit of the stigma is that women don't put their hand up to be advisors, to give advice, you know, to be on the firing line, so to speak. And we have to do a better job of encouraging women who get into financial services to be striving for the window office, not necessarily the corner office. Not everybody wants to be president, but definitely the window office versus the cubicle. You know, this notion of female assistants and male advisors is a bit of a stigma that we have to change.
Thank you, Cindy. Mirella, do you find that women are less likely to reach for a higher position? And why would that be? Why would we think that we have, there's a study that shows that we have the imposter syndrome. And I know I might be catching you off guard here, but are we imposters? Do you think that we are reaching for our ultimate goal? Kind of like what Cindy was saying. What are your thoughts around this?
I think that we feel like imposters sometimes. I think that's probably because when we're striving for a position, we don't normally go for it unless we feel 100% sure that we've mastered it. Very different from how a man views it. A man will, you know, go for a promotion and figure out the proving part later. So there's something in us as a result of maybe upbringing, maybe years of just being, you know, on the back burner, that kind of has us thinking that we haven't merited a certain role or a certain position. And again, very different from the ideology of a man that's just going to go for it and figure it out later. So I think we've come a long way, but I think that we unfortunately still have that imposter feeling. And that's something I think we have to work towards. We have to just kind of jump in and try and gain that confidence to be able to shed that imposter feeling.
I'm going to ask you a question, Mirella, and I'll allow the others as well. I'll ask the others as well to respond. According to an article by HuffPost and Sheryl Sandberg, author of a best-selling book called Lean In, strong independent women often get labeled as aggressive. Lots of people prefer women quiet and submissive, but only remedy purposes think, you know, you should be sweet and gentle, but when you do speak up, we're considered aggressive. So what are your thoughts and how can we overcome that?
Yeah, I've never been good in the sweet and gentle category. But when I hear the word aggressive, I kind of feel that there's a negative connotation to it. But these are words that are used loosely, and I don't think they have a lot of meaning. If you're strong and independent and you can behave in such a way where people are perceiving you to be assertive and decisive, and someone who's not afraid to stand up for what they believe in, then that's what you want. It doesn't matter what term they use. I remember my first boss when I came out of university used to say to me, "You're full of piss and vinegar, Mirella. That's what I love about you." And you know, it never bothered me. In fact, to this day, I see it as a compliment. So I'm not sure if it's about letting slurs slide off or maybe not getting caught up on labels or words. But I think it's more about just changing your perspective.
Cindy, do you feel that we are either submissive or aggressive, or that we're perceived in one way or the other?
I'm hoping everybody saw me roll my eyes at that question. It just grates on me. You know, I don't know that you can label a gender that way. I think that we all bring our own personality to the table. And you know, I always joke that I'm a male trapped in a female body, so I get to wear skirts and put on makeup. You know, I think it's a bonus. I don't think that we need to act like men to be successful at all. I think, in fact, there should be more studies on providing proof that females make better advisors. Okay, good advisors, guys. I'm not here to offend anybody. But you know, it's that ability to connect with people, that, you know, I don't want to say the nurturing motherly type of thing, but all my clients are my little hens. I don't care how old they are. And you know, there is that ability to connect that I think makes females ideal for an advisory role. What else could I say about that? You know, I actually know of a very successful female investment advisor that actually had her testosterone checked just to make sure, you know, like she thought that maybe hers was too high because she's just such a go-getter. So isn't that just a better term? You know, I love Morella's comment about let's just make sure that we frame any of those labels in a positive light, and just run with it.
Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to add. Those were great comments. What I can say, younger in my career, I spent a lot of my time trying to emulate the men around me. Because I didn't have any female mentors. I didn't know what success looked like. And so I would just say, oh, well, that's what success looks like. So I would mimic what they did. Sometimes that worked out for me. Sometimes it didn't work out for me. But I really like what Cindy said. I actually tried to be tougher than I actually am. Right? I never told people that I had kids. I didn't want to be seen as a mother and nurturing and all those things because I thought it was going to hurt me, right? And which is a really sad statement. And what happened over the years was I started to embrace who I was, not all of the men that were around me. And you know what? I'm a lot of different things. I'm aggressive. I'm soft. I'm quiet. Don't think I'm submissive, but you know, there's so many different parts to me that, and if they're complimentary, you can call me that. Right? So it sounds like a cliche, but yeah, don't label us. Don't label an entire gender or, you know, yeah, just don't label.
Thank you. And Gael, I was raised to believe that I am no better than the president of a very big country or a woman on the street. What do you feel are the women who are on the street now? How did they end up there? What are their biggest challenges today, and how are you contributing to helping them? You're on mute.
Oh, so you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. So being homeless is not a situation. It's a state of your own self-health. So it's a state of relational health. All the women that we deal with are survivor of post-traumatic development, which you call the complex post-traumatic syndrome, which is trauma that happened during your childhood. So some of them even were created when the spermatozoid went into the ovule in fear, because the mother was victim of conjugal violence, the mother had mental health, the mother wanted to like abort that child, whatever. So the identity, the person is created on that survival mode. So when you have you're facing a danger, the only three ways to escape is it's the you hear me? My internet is lagging. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We do hear you.
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Hear me? My
Yeah,
internet
we
is
hear you.
lagging.
We hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so when you're facing a danger, so when a child is facing a danger, it's your autonomous nervous system is reacting. You only have three out. You have so you have the fight, fear, and escape mode. And our women, they're crystallized into the energy of the shock post-traumatic stress disorder. And in order to help them, we have to heal them to come out of it. And it's the same thing for the women who wants to succeed. Because when you're scared of rejection, when you're scared of judgment, when you're scared of and I was a good singer. I was working with stars and everything, but what would make me the most nervous every time would be doing auditions, because doing auditions, I would be being judged. I could be failing. I was not good enough. And I think that's the problem in our societies, that the society is based on male power culture. And for women, everything that is not due, that is not good enough is feminine. It's not masculine. So that's why we don't dare applying for bigger position, for higher position, or even send our CVs, even though we have all the qualification, because we always have to prove ourselves on, I'm good enough to do it. And that's the danger. I have 6 daughters, so I've always worked in a field where the feminine culture or the feminine color was good enough for my job, because caring, nursing, even as being a singer, backup singer, well, you need to be pretty, sing well, and that's feminine. But now for my daughters who wants to be a top surgeon or just a truck driver, whatever, but yeah, you always have to prove yourself, and that's by recovering what we are, our she power. I became the lioness I am when I gave birth to my first daughter, because before that I was always shy. I was very ashamed, very subdued. And when I got my daughter in my arms, I was ready to kill, and I became the lioness. And we have to remember that we raise the men of tomorrow, we raise our boys, and we can make them see things differently. And I still believe that it's not a gender, it's a society vision, because we don't deserve less than men. We don't. But the society, and it's very an intrinsic devalorization of what we are, because yes, we're not good enough, but we are, and we are stronger, actually.
We are strong. And what's interesting about us is this power that has been brought up, and this need of awareness has been brought on by the fact that women have been told to be quiet. Women have been told that they don't have the same right, that they can't speak up. And if you think of Cindy, who will be speaking in the House of Commons, women were not allowed to vote not that long ago, and she's going to be addressing the government. Some of the things that have come to light and come to be is because we ourselves have found ourselves in a fight or flight situation. We have to survive amongst a society that didn't know that we had value or had a voice. So I encourage you to continue to speak up and to raise your daughters to have a strong voice, as I raise my 3 young sons to respect the voice of women. So I'm very proud to be among you.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but when we don't dare doing whatever, apply to a position or run the marathon or whatever, we're into the freezing or running away, flying reflexes or of our system, because to be able to risk, need a inner sense of security, and that gives you the power. So if you doubt about yourself, you're not in that inner security, and then you cannot go forward, you cannot take risks.
Cindy, according to a study conducted by Healthy Women and Working Mother magazine, women ranked their time spent managing healthcare in the following order. Okay, speaking of what Gael is talking about here: children, pets, their elderly relatives, significant others, and then afterwards themselves. Not only themselves last on the list according to these studies, but some women aren't getting the time at all. A shocking 78% said that they often put off taking care of themselves because they're busy taking care of something else or someone else. So how are we keeping ourselves strong to overcome our day, our week, our month, our year? How are you? What is your, I know the word self-care has been used, but what is your regime? How do you manage?
I will give you some insight into how I do that, but I will first say I think it's hilarious that pets are above parents and spouses. I'm not gonna lie, I probably agree with that myself. I've made a point of not giving up my friends when my kids were babies. I made a point of booking time with them, and Jazz can attest that we had those moments, and sometimes it was just a half a glass of wine, but it was still nice just to get out and have an adult conversation. That's an investment of time and energy. What it takes to be able to do that is to ask for help, and I would say that's probably the biggest fault that we could take on our shoulders, is that we think we have to do it all. We have to be folding laundry until midnight and prepping for our meetings the next days. So I'm the queen of delegation. We've had help around the house since day one. I definitely can say that my kids were raised by the village. My choice. They're, not latchkey kids, but they're very strong and independent, and I like that. I would say also that's the dog that I love more than anybody ever. So I would also say, one of the things that I do is I go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week with a personal trainer. And I do that not because I like wasting all of my money, but because if it's not booked in my schedule, I'll let work bleed into the time that I have to get home to have dinner, or do whatever else, do the grocery shopping or whatever beckons. And so for me, it's making sure that I block it off in my calendar. If it's in my calendar, it gets done. And I also wanted to say just a comment about perhaps women choosing not to be in an advisory role because of the stress of and extra time of raising kids. That typically, when before getting pregnant, I said to my husband, I'm not here to be superwoman. We're in this 50-50, and then you pop a kid out and you realize, no, you're the mom. You've got the right parts and all of the milk. And it's really overweight on moms in the early years. And so it's almost like the reverse of what you think is true. I think that we need to be advisors making more money than the support roles, so that we can afford the help to be able to go back to the office and make more money. So, I really encourage people to just think about financially what it will take in order for you to stay in your job and not leave your job to take care of kids and older family members. And I'll also point out that from February to October of last year, women represented 64% of the people who left the workforce to do just that. So definitely, the pandemic has had an effect on everybody, but a disproportionate effect on women. So we really need to sort of look around and make sure that we're supporting those women and get them back in the driver's seat.
Very interesting comment, Cindy. I actually saw a post recently about a company who was saying that a big percentage, over 70% of their workforce was female. But when I looked into it, it was in the support roles. And I really hoped to see more women reach for bigger roles. So I'm going to ask Catherine this. In the book Why She Buys by Bridget Brennan, she says that the global economic downturn has countless implications, but one of the most notable is that women are now poised to overtake men in the workplace. So what are your thoughts? Has the pandemic really changed that? What do you have to say to women who, a large percentage of the women who are in support roles?
Oh, wow. Okay. There's a lot of stuff packed in that.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's documented now. Women are leaving the workforce in droves, and they're leaving. What I'm observing, because I'm seeing it firsthand, is, they're looking after parents. They might have younger children. I work with a portfolio manager, and they have 2 young kids, and it was just, they couldn't kind of put the household together, right? So there's a ton of different reasons, but I think a lot of it is just family situations. And I think we've all kind of admitted that typically it's us that gets put with that burden. So, I mean, it's a tough one, right? How do you, like, if you're looking for advice, like, how do you keep it together? I think, again, what Cindy said was bang on. Learn how to delegate. Also, learn to not be perfect. And I'll give you a recent example. And listen, I'm fortunate, and I know there's a lot of people that might not have been able to do this, but my father passed away last year. But I had an amazing experience the last 8 months of his life. He actually lived with me. And, was it work? Absolutely. But I will tell you, I still worked out. I still saw my friends. I still work. My life didn't change. My father just became part of it, right? And then in the last 3 weeks of his life, he was in a hospice, and I went to work every day on his couch in his room. That's where I worked. And this was before COVID, which I feel very fortunate. It was, he passed away 2 weeks before COVID. But so I worked on the couch, and even at my level, I asked for permission, right, from my boss. Is it okay? And, he laughed at me, which was an appropriate response. But I was still kind of hesitant, right, to ask. So I say to women, people are actually more flexible than maybe you think. Because when I hear at Manulife, within my, what do women want? And I always say they need flexibility, because yeah, we are doing the laundry, we are looking after our parents. Yeah, we're feeding the dog, whatever it is. So give us a little bit more flexibility. And yeah, so I guess the advice would be to women to maybe ask more, because I think sometimes we make the assumption, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't, we all work from home now, but I never thought that I could work from the couch in my father's hospice room. You know what? It worked out fine. Nobody noticed. Right? So
The human in us. So we need to be seeking out the human in each other rather than struggling for power. Really nice, really nice. Morella, in a book that I Know How She Does It by Laura Vanderkam, she suggests that taking difficult tasks early in the morning at your peak energy is what is right to do. I know that you are a high achieving woman, that you are currently completing your MBA, along with all of your tasks. So how are you doing it? Are you tackling the difficult tasks in the morning? What does your routine look like?
Yeah, so I would say, I have a one-word answer, and I would say it's structure. I think first and foremost, it's important to know yourself. So are you a morning person? Do you work best late at night, early, late hours of late hours of the evening? You need to know who you are, figure out your most productive time. And what I do is I organize my most difficult tasks in that time space. So when I say difficult tasks, it's those kind of tasks that you have to get to, but you're kind of avoiding. So it's not necessarily the most pleasant tasks, but it's the ones that you need to get done and you want to get off your plate. So I'll put those first, and then I'll organize the rest of my agenda with specific tasks in the form of appointments. It also helps me kind of put a time fence around those tasks so that I'm indirectly putting a time limit on them, and I don't stray from it. And I give myself some time at the end of the week to evaluate what I've done, to pat myself on the back for the things I've done well, and to focus on maybe what I should do differently for the week after. So it's really about structure, just a lot of structure.
So when we have a lot of structure, we have a little bit more control. One of the things that has become important that I've seen highlighted in all of your backgrounds is financial literacy and the importance of financial independence. So I'll ask you to each speak a little bit about that, but I'll address the first question to Mirella. Women are 3 times as likely as men to say they can't afford to retire. And now with women coming out of the pandemic back into the home instead of in the workforce, and they have significantly lower rates of financial literacy. What is BMO doing to improve that? Do you feel it's part of your mission? How are you helping?
Yeah, so I love this question, and only because I'm very proud to be working for an organization that really empowers women the way BMO does. In June 2019, BMO was the first institution to sign the UN Women's Empowerment Principles. It's the first and only financial institution to sponsor the Women Deliver Conference, which, in case you don't know, is the largest worldwide conference for gender equality, and it was hosted in BC in 2019. We've recently launched a webinar series called Looking Ahead to help women get through the pandemic and beyond. So 7 English and 4 French webinars. During the height of COVID, we delivered 8 response webinars and workshops reaching over 350 women across North America. We have a website that's dedicated to women called bmoforwomen.com, where we have information and motivating content in the form of articles and podcasts on exactly financial literacy. We also run many workshops on the topic. We're constantly sharing messages that reinforce the importance of reframing how we speak about women and money. Last year, we released a very powerful video entitled Jane that does just that. And the list really does go on. So I believe in financial literacy. I believe in it overall. I've got boys as well. And I think if it could start in the home and teaching them about how to save and how to invest and just some of the basics that is not unfortunately taught in schools, then we're just making a more powerful population. But in particular for women, because for the most part, and for many years, we were taught that, the man will take care of it, marry rich, or, have somebody else look after it. You don't have to. So I'm a firm believer, and I'm really happy to be working for an organization that is all for that.
Catherine?
Okay, Mirella, I applaud you. Well done. And I will say that for the organization I'm with, Manulife, it's a little bit more of a work in progress. I'm actually on a committee right now that's focused on women lens investing. It's about all the great things that Mirella is talking about. I think we do it enough. How about that? But there's so much more we could do. So I would say that's something that we're focused on at this point. And yeah, more of a work in progress. In fact, I wrote a bunch of notes down what Mirella said for great ideas. So I think that's important. financial literacy overall, I think people are just intimidated. It's not just women. I think people are intimidated by finances in general. And the industry is a lot to fault for that because we love using acronyms and we, I certainly tried to look really smart when I was younger and that leads to a lot of confusion. So again, and probably the people on this call probably are pretty financially literate, I would assume, right? But, if you have friends or it's amazing how many people you can educate just by using plain language and not overcomplicating things. So again, if you're in this industry, we can all do it at a grassroots level and make a big impact. But Marilla, I'm gonna follow up with you.
Excellent. Cindy, you too are very involved with financial literacy. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Junior Achievement Program and how you have helped yourself in your own personal practice with your clients? And talk to us about that.
Sure. First of all, I would love to get a copy of that video, Marilla.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you guys can send to everybody after this, because that
We will.
piqued my interest. I sit on the National Board for Junior Achievement that has been around in Canada, teaching students about financial literacy and entrepreneurialism, which I think is as important as financial literacy, because small business is the backbone of our economy, and we need to encourage people to take the risk to start their own businesses, teach them how to do that at a very early age. And manage the books, that's all a part of it. Manage the books at home and manage the books at the office. I got involved in that because of the age of my kids and realizing that, they had benefited from junior achievement. And, again, just an opportunity to give back. I think I need to invest in the plaque that says "Stop me from volunteering." But really great organization. I'm hoping that we can maybe get some of the funds that were given to another charitable organization last year, in the 900 million range, because it doesn't take a lot of money to extend our reach to children, especially with this huge pivot, of course, everybody did, to tech. We were talking about pivoting to tech, and then COVID hit, and then 5 minutes later tech appeared. So I think that's really, really cool. And I'm not trying to be rose-colored glasses, but there are some good things that have come out of this pandemic that have really forced us to have a good hard look at how and why we do things. And I just want to make sure that we don't forget the youth. We need to start early, not after graduation. I don't think that, whether it's female or male, our youth don't hear about financial advisory roles, when they're in school. So I've done the parent volunteering in the classrooms at my son's high school to talk about financial services and what a great industry this is. How much flexibility we have, and there's just like all the money you want to make is really there for you to make in this industry. We're pretty fortunate. What else would I say about that? I don't know. I would definitely, if to anybody that's listening, talk to your kids about financial literacy and maybe ask them if they've received a junior achievement training in the classroom. Sometimes they don't even know they're receiving it because it's just this stranger that shows up. But certainly on Zoom now, it'll probably be more obvious.
Thank you, Cindy. We've received a lot of questions about Morella's video, so we will be sending it to all the advisors. Not to worry. All the information that we've shared here will be sent to you at the end of the conference. I have for me, financial literacy is really important because I don't want to need anyone, and I don't want to fall victim to control. And I think about that when I think about the women from La Rue des Femmes. And yeah, how would that have made a difference to women? Financial literacy, is that an important part of the healing process?
Um, for the women that we work with, it's part of the healing process in a way that they won't depend on, they're doing sex work and they're using drugs. So actually they need money all the time to sustain their needs of addiction. And it's they couldn't see that the money would be needed for something else than that. So we really need to heal that before everything else, because the reality of our ladies is that when they get their welfare check on the first of the month, um, they're so happy that they're going to be able to fulfill the needs of addiction without having to work for it, meaning without having to do prostitution, because they don't like, just like you and me, we wouldn't like to do prostitution. They hate it. So for them, it's the freedom, the moment of the month of freedom, that they can fulfill that physical need without having to sell themselves. So yes, it's part of the healing process for sure, but maybe not at the beginning of it. That's something for later on.
I always steal this from Spider-Man, by the way. You guys, all of you who know me have heard it also. With great power comes great responsibility. And so we have this great power of knowledge, and we have a responsibility to pay it forward. So we pay it forward for those, I think about that personally all the time, about how women who find themselves less privileged, I have to find a way to help them. I was put here given all these things so that I can find a way to give it back. So, I know that all of you do volunteer work, but I'm proud of you, because that's part of who we are, to pay forward. And we're paying forward as women with our voices and standing up for things that people didn't before. So it's an impressive walk towards the peak is what we're doing. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you. I'm going to ask you a final question. It'll be addressed to all of you. So first one to speak is up to you. What would you have told your young self? What advice, what counsel, what can you tell what would you say to the young you?
All right, I'll talk about young me at work. I won't go that, I'm not going to go back to 5 or 7. That would be way too much. But the biggest thing, and I heard this earlier, is delegate. And I'll just tell you a quick story, because it actually changed my professional life. I was a proud and honorary member of the Workaholic Committee, right? I used to work day in, day out, 7 days a week. I was usually in the office in Waterloo till midnight. And my husband would say, "What are you doing?" And what happened was, what I considered my best employee, she came in one day and resigned. And I was devastated, and she went for a sideways move to another part of the organization. Made no sense to me. And I asked her why, and she said, "Because you don't need me." And yet the opposite was true, because I spent so much of my time doing other people's work, thinking I was helping them, right? Because taking the load off them, and what I was doing was holding them back. And I ran into her about 3 years ago, and I just said, "You changed my life. You gave me a big, wake up call, because what I thought was doing for good was actually hurting myself, but the people around me as well." So delegate, because you're going to help yourself, but you're going to help everybody around you grow as well.
I'll just continue. So first of all, Catherine, I love those comments. I think they're great. I'm sure a lot of us could probably put that into practice. For myself, the advice I'd probably give to myself goes back to what we were speaking about a little bit before, is trying to find that confidence. I think as women, sometimes we hesitate to go for higher roles or to go for that promotion. It's rare unless we feel we're a perfect fit or we've mastered whatever position we're looking to fill. And of course, we never feel that we've mastered it. So, you know, I've come a long way. I have a lot of confidence today, but it took a long time. So I would say to my younger self, I'd push myself to have more confidence in my abilities, and just to try for stuff, just keep trying. And if you don't get it, you know, who cares? And if you do, you'll figure it out along the way men do. So that's the advice I give myself.
I've been saying this to myself for quite a few years. I would say enjoy the journey. I hated not being the best version of myself when in my 20s, knowing that, you know, I'd be a better advisor in my 30s and my 40s. I hated that it was going to take so much time to get there, you know, wherever there is for you. And you know, maybe it's just the old age kicking in, but or maybe it's the fact that I've achieved a certain level of success that I'm sure as heck enjoying it now. But I really wish I just enjoyed knowing that success would follow if I did all those right things. And of course, it's easy to say, you know, we have the Granum system and all these, you know, knock on a certain number of doors and you'll cash a certain paycheck and all that stuff, and it's not wrong. But I just, and I say it to other people too that I see starting new businesses, when I'm just looking at them going, you're brilliant, and you know, your work ethic is there, and of course you're going to be successful. Just enjoy this, you know. But you know, we feel this stress, but if you can, and I'm not being trite, you know, stop and smell the roses. Actually, just sit back and think about how awesome it is that you're able to do what you're doing. That's it.
And I think Andel's internet's a little choppy, but if she would like to join us. And in the meantime, we have a question from the audience. You can address it. What does success mean to you? What is success? How do you know you've gotten there?
Are you asking me?
Sure. You're the one who spoke about success. So let's talk about.
Oh, okay. I would say that the only way you're going to know if you're successful is if you start writing down your goals, because you won't get there if you don't know where you're going. I was very fortunate enough to have a mentor invest in business coaching for me early in my career. So I became a strategic coach junkie, like a good some 30 years ago. And writing down those goals so that you can find that scrap piece of paper 10, 15 years later and look at what you thought was lofty and go, well, of course I was going to do that. You know, definitely goal setting. And I want to pull my hair out when people say, oh, I don't set goals, or I don't know how. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. You can, and you do know how. Can you write? Do you have a pen? It's not that hard. And it really is a bucket list. It doesn't have to be this formal business process. You know, what's on your bucket list? And write it down so that you can find that scrap piece, like actually write it down. Don't use your computer or your phone, your mobile device. Write it down so you can find that scrap piece of paper. This happened to me. And I looked at it and I thought, I remember feeling like my 3-year income goal was this huge stretch. Like, how am I ever going to get there? And then looking back, I was just like, well, gosh, of course I'm going to, you know, make there. So write down goals.
I'll just add to that, Cindy. I think your comments are great, and it speaks to how success is very personal, right? It's very personal. It's different for everybody. But I love your comment about writing it down, because I think that in order to figure out whether you've achieved success, you need to define it for yourself first. So, and it might be personal, it might be, family goals, it might be education, it might be money, it might be income at a certain level for, to a certain date or something like that. But I think it needs to be defined for yourself, and then you can measure it. I don't know that we can put a blanket statement on what success should be like. I think it's very personal.
We have another question. What in the panel's eyes may be the best opportunity as a life insurance agent in the next 10 years? Catherine, do you want to?
I missed the first part of that question.
What is it? So what are your thoughts on opportunities a life insurance agent has in the next 10 years?
Okay, so again, you cut out again, but what do you think the opportunities for a life insurance agent are for the next 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of opportunities for financial advice, period. I think that people are realizing, again, like delegation. Somebody talked about they have a personal trainer, right? I mean, I don't know. I got one of these things, right, that counts my steps and, tells me to stand up, which I should have done because I got a little alert. And I still hire a trainer, right? And I look at financial advice as the same way, right? We have access to this, crazy world with, whether it be robo advice or, we can Google stuff because we're all part-time doctors, we're all part-time advisors, right? But I think that what people are realizing is to get real advice, to get that trainer, that they need to delegate all of it. And as the baby boomers move through, I think they're, making it clear to their beneficiaries how important that is. So I think the future is ripe. If you want to focus in on women, I'm really passionate about female financial advisors, because when there is a death or there is a transfer of wealth, depending what statistic you look at, 70 to 80% of people leave their financial advisors, right? And I believe a lot of the time is because the woman, who is typically the surviving partner, was not engaged in the conversation. They were excluded, which I think everybody on this panel probably has been excluded in their life. So I think, being a female financial advisor, life insurance agents, whatever the name you want to call yourself, I just think the prospects are so bright, because of the transfer of wealth. And quite frankly, the average age of a widow in Canada right now is 56 years old, and they need help. And you're already talking to these women, so it's pretty exciting from that perspective.
Thank you. I have a question specifically for Morella. How far do you plan ahead? What is your approach if you can't manage to complete all the tasks? So all of these women who are listening in, they want to know, how did you guys make it? What are you doing that is different from what everyone else is doing?
So I guess it goes back to my structure comment, and I am a planner. I believe in planning, and I tell my business development managers the same thing. I like reports, not because I like to read reports, but I believe in planning for yourself. And so, I mentioned that I'll look to next week, at the end of this week, so that I can kind of figure out what I need to fit in. But I'll also do that on a quarterly basis as well. I just think it's important in your life to take the time to stop and not only look back, but also have whatever you learned propel you forward. So whether it is, week to week, to basically know what tasks you want to focus on the next week, or quarter to quarter, so that you know what you've spent more time on in the past quarter, and therefore it'll guide you as to what you want to be spending more time on in the future from a development standpoint, whether it's business development or whatever it is. Doesn't have to be so task oriented, I think that I think it helps. It helps me anyway. It helps me feel like I'm ahead of it as opposed to always trying to catch up. So I'm not sure if that answers the question specifically, but that's all I got.
Thank you, Morella. And I was reminded that we're,
Can I chime in there? Because
of course you can. Of
something
course
that
you can.
really helped me, and my schedule is and can be fairly nuts. I color code my calendar, and just visually, it is so amazing. And I color code it according to the strategic coach free focus and buffer days. But I know if I've got too much blue in there, those are my COI meetings, that I'm not seeing enough clients that week. And I don't have to spend valuable time sort of counting the hours. I can just look at my calendar and see if I'm even overweight on clients. I got to remember to get in front of a center of influence. So color coding, phone calls, in client meetings, case prep. So it's very colorful. It's like a rainbow, but it's really, really helpful. It really changed my calendar life.
That's a great tip. Catherine, do you want to add something?
On staying organized, I plan everything out a year in advance. And I'm a very spur of the moment person, so it's actually kind of reined me in a bit. But I know what time I'm going to work out every day. I know when I'm going to take my holidays. I know it's all, and so it forces me to do the right thing that sometimes I might not, suddenly my work would bleed into my holiday or into my workout, but they're non-negotiable. And how I push back is by saying, hey, I'm the one that planned out a year in advance, right? Like I took the time to do that. So that's helped me a ton.
Thank you. So you're organized, you're intentional, and you're powerful. So thank you for sharing with us. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you all for attending. We will be sending all of the details that we've shared here in an email to all of the attendees. So thank you very much for being with us on behalf of IDC and the entire panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Henrietta. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.